2026 is shaping up to be one of those rare years where it genuinely feels like the industry is about to shift gears. Not just because of bigger budgets or better graphics, but because so many studios seem ready to take real risks again, new worlds, new ideas, and long-awaited returns that fans have been waiting years, sometimes decades, to see. We're talking about games that aim to redefine open worlds, horror, action combat, racing, RPG storytelling, and even how immersive a game can realistically feel. This isn't just a list of trailers that looked cool for a minute. These are games people can't stop talking about, speculating over, breaking down frame by frame, and imagining themselves playing. So let's go through the biggest and most talked about games coming in 2026, what each one is about, and the one thing that makes it stand out from everything else around it. First Light. First Light finally delivers a James Bond experience that feels true to the idea of espionage. Instead of throwing you into constant action, the game focuses on stealth, intelligence gathering, and decision-making. You play a younger Bond, still learning the ropes, which makes every mission feel tense and deliberate. Shift out of checks are flexible, encouraging creative solutions rather than brute force. The standout feature is freedom. Missions are built with multiple approaches in mind, allowing gadgets, social manipulation, and careful planning to shine. Information is as powerful as weapons, and preparation matters. The grounded tone strips away exaggerated camp in favor of suspense and realism. It feels like thinking like a spy finally matters, and that shift alone makes First Light one of the most exciting reimaginings of the Bond franchise. Control, Resonant. Resonant doubles down on everything that made the original unforgettable. The world is surreal, unstable, and constantly shifting, pulling you deeper into its mysteries. Combat blends psychic abilities with environmental destruction, creating chaotic but controlled encounters. Storytelling remains abstract, trusting players to interpret events rather than explaining everything outright. The unique hook this time is sound. Abilities, environments, and enemies react to audio and frequency-based mechanics, making silence just as important as chaos. Levels reshape themselves dynamically, encouraging experimentation and curiosity. Resonant isn't afraid to be weird, and that creative fearlessness is what makes it stand out in an industry that often plays it safe. Nioh 3. Nioh 3 refines its already deep combat into something even more expressive. The game demands focus, precision, and mastery, pushing players to learn systems rather than rely on shortcuts. The mythological Japanese setting remains dark and beautiful, filled with challenging enemies and intense encounters. The biggest improvement is flexibility. Builds feel less restrictive, and supernatural abilities flow naturally into combat. Enemy AI is smarter, forcing adaptation instead of memorization. Nioh 3 doesn't hold your hand, but it rewards dedication like few games can, making every victory feel earned. Reanimal. Reanimal is horror through symbolism and emotion rather than traditional fear tactics. The game follows two siblings navigating a distorted, hostile world that feels deeply personal. Environments are surreal and oppressive, using visual storytelling to convey trauma and vulnerability. What makes Reanimal unique is its codependent design. Progression often requires cooperation, making separation feel dangerous and emotionally charged. Horror emerges from atmosphere, implication, and helplessness rather than enemies. It's unsettling in a quiet, lingering way, and that artistic focus makes it one of the most distinctive horror titles coming in 2026. Phantom Blade Zero. Phantom Blade Zero looks like a game designed to make combat enthusiasts lose their minds. It delivers lightning-fast melee combat wrapped in dark, stylish fantasy, where every movement feels intentional. The combat system rewards timing, precision, and flow rather than brute force, encouraging players to truly master its mechanics. Every encounter feels like a performance, blending speed with brutality in a way that feels incredibly satisfying. What sets Phantom Blade Zero apart is how cinematic it feels without sacrificing control. Transitions between combat and storytelling are seamless, keeping immersion intact. Animations are smooth and expressive, enemies react convincingly, and the overall presentation feels confident and polished. It's not just flashy, it's disciplined. Phantom Blade Zero feels like a game built by developers who understand style, substance, and how to make skill feel rewarding. Aniimo. Aniimo offers a refreshing take on the creature collection genre by focusing on bonding rather than dominance. The world is bright, cozy, and designed to encourage relaxed exploration. Discovering new Aniimo feels organic, driven by curiosity rather than checklists. The defining feature is emotional connection. Aniimo react to how you treat them, forming bonds that directly influence abilities and behavior. Combat and traversal rely on cooperation rather than power scaling, making every partnership feel unique. Instead of catching everything, the game encourages nurturing relationships, giving Aniimo a surprisingly heartfelt identity. Marvel Tokon, Fighting Souls. Fighting Souls looks like it's built to energize both casual players and competitive fighting game fans. It blends iconic Marvel characters with a flashy, fast-paced combat system that prioritizes momentum and style. Matches are explosive, visually striking, and easy to understand at a glance, making it incredibly fun to watch as well as play. The standout strength of Fighting Souls is accessibility without sacrificing depth. Controls are approachable, combos feel intuitive, and players are encouraged to experiment rather than memorize rigid inputs. At the same time, deeper mechanics reward mastery and creative expression. Cinematic transitions and dynamic arenas keep fights feeling fresh, while balance-focused design ensures competitive viability. It's a game that understands spectacle matters, but gameplay always comes first, a balance that makes it stand out in the crowded fighting game space. Resident Evil, Requiem. Requiem cranks tension to an almost unbearable level by leaning fully into psychological horror. Instead of relying on action-heavy set pieces, the game focuses on atmosphere, unease, and the constant feeling that something is wrong. Environments feel oppressive, sound design keeps you on edge, and exploration becomes a nerve-wracking experience. Combat is restrained, forcing you to think carefully about every encounter rather than relying on firepower. The unique strength of Requiem is how it messes with perception. Familiar spaces subtly change, reality feels unstable, and the story unfolds in fragmented pieces that you have to mentally piece together. Enemies aren't always predictable, and the game thrives on uncertainty rather than shock value. It feels experimental, confident, and deeply unsettling. Requiem isn't trying to scare you for a moment, it's trying to stay with you long after you stop playing, and that's what makes it so compelling. Tomb Raider, Legacy of Atlantis. Legacy of Atlantis brings Lara Croft back to what made the series iconic: exploration, mystery, and danger. The game emphasizes ancient ruins, environmental puzzles, and careful traversal over constant combat. Every location feels layered and intentional, rewarding observation and patience. What makes this entry special is restraint. Combat exists, but it doesn't dominate the experience. Instead, tension comes from the environment itself, collapsing structures, hidden traps, and the unknown. Mythology is treated seriously, grounded just enough to feel believable. Lara feels human again, capable, but vulnerable. Legacy of Atlantis isn't about spectacle, it's about discovery, and that shift is exactly what longtime fans have been hoping for. Fable. Fable's return feels like a breath of fresh air in a genre that's become obsessed with seriousness. This reboot embraces charm, humor, and whimsy without sacrificing depth. The world is vibrant and strange, filled with exaggerated personalities, fairy tale absurdity, and moral choices that actually matter. Exploration is encouraged, curiosity is rewarded, and the game constantly pokes fun at itself while still delivering genuine emotional moments. The defining feature of Fable is its reactivity. The world remembers what you do. NPCs talk about your choices, your reputation evolves, and even your character's appearance reflects how you live. Combat is playful rather than punishing, blending magic, melee, and gadgets in a way that feels expressive. What sets Fable apart is its unapologetic identity. It doesn't want to be gritty or realistic. It wants to be memorable, funny, and meaningful, and that confidence is exactly why people are excited for its return. Mouse, PI for Hire. PI for Hire might be the most visually unforgettable game on this list. Inspired by classic rubber hose cartoons, it presents a noir detective story in hand-drawn black and white animation. Beneath the playful art style is a tight, fast-paced shooter filled with danger and mystery. The brilliance lies in contrast. Cheerful visuals clash with gritty themes, high-stakes combat, and dark storytelling. Animations flow with exaggerated personality, but gameplay remains precise and responsive. The art style isn't just cosmetic, it defines how the game feels, moves, and stands out. Mouse, PI for Hire is weird, bold, and confident, making it an unforgettable way to close out the list. Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert is fueled by sheer ambition. The game blends open-world exploration with physically grounded combat in a harsh fantasy setting shaped by war, politics, and survival. The world feels alive, with NPCs following routines and events unfolding whether you're there or not. Combat is dynamic and weighty, forcing you to react rather than memorize patterns. What truly makes Crimson Desert stand out is how free it feels. Vertical movement, large-scale battles, and unscripted story moments blur the line between narrative and sandbox gameplay. It's a world designed to be experienced, not rushed through. Everything points to a game that wants you to carve your own path rather than follow a strict storyline, which is exactly why the hype keeps growing. Unrecord. Unrecord instantly grabs attention because it doesn't look or feel like a traditional game. Presented entirely through a body cam perspective, it drops you into tense law enforcement scenarios with zero safety nets. There's no HUD, no cinematic framing, just raw, unsettling realism. Movement feels grounded, environments are hyper-detailed, and every sound matters. The pacing forces you to slow down, listen, and think before acting. What makes Unrecord so compelling is how uncomfortable it is by design. You're not meant to feel powerful. Encounters can end instantly if you're careless, and that constant vulnerability drives real tension. The body cam view isn't a gimmick, It changes how you perceive space, threats, and responsibility. Even small decisions feel heavy. Unrecord turns realism into horror, making it one of the most intense and talked about shooters coming in 2026. Grand Theft Auto 6, GTA 6 isn't just another release on the calendar. It feels like a moment where the entire gaming industry holds its breath. Returning to Vice City in a modern setting, the game presents a world that feels alive at a scale Rockstar has never attempted before. The city isn't just big, it's reactive. Crimes escalate naturally, crowds respond believably, and the world continues to operate whether you're involved or not. The dual protagonist story brings a more personal angle to the chaos, balancing large-scale crime with grounded, human moments. Everything about GTA 6 points toward deeper immersion, from how law enforcement behaves to how NPCs react over time rather than instantly forgetting your actions. What really pushes GTA 6 into legendary territory is how heavily it leans into realism without losing its trademark satire. Small details, traffic flow, environmental reactions, social systems combine to make the world feel like an ecosystem instead of a sandbox. It looks less like a game map and more like a functioning city. If this lands the way it's shaping up, GTA 6 won't just be the biggest release of 2026, it could reset expectations for open-world design entirely. Gears of War, E-Day, as it takes the series back to its darkest, most important moment, Emergence Day. Instead of polished soldiers and epic battles, this game focuses on chaos, confusion, and fear. You're seeing the world fall apart in real time as the Locust invasion begins, and that shift in perspective gives the story emotional weight the franchise hasn't explored before. The tone is heavier, more desperate, and more grounded, turning familiar Gears gameplay into something far more intense. What makes E-Day special is how it reframes combat. This isn't about winning a war, it's about surviving the worst day in human history. For longtime fans, it adds depth and context to everything that came after, making Gears of War, E-Day feel essential rather than nostalgic. Exodus. Exodus feels like a sci-fi RPG built around weighty decisions rather than flashy spectacle, and that's exactly why it stands out. Set in a future where humanity has abandoned Earth, the game places you in a fractured galaxy shaped by political tension, survival, and long-term consequences. Exploration is slow and deliberate, encouraging curiosity, dialogue, and discovery instead of non-stop combat. When conflict does happen, it feels meaningful, reinforcing the idea that violence is a choice, not a default solution. The defining feature of Exodus is how it handles time. Choices don't just affect immediate outcomes, they echo forward, sometimes decades later. Characters age, relationships evolve, and entire factions shift based on what you've done. Companions feel deeply personal, reacting not just to your words but to your history. This creates a sense that you're living inside a timeline rather than progressing through a checklist. It's a game about responsibility, memory, and legacy, and that long-view storytelling gives Exodus a level of emotional weight few RPGs even attempt. Beast of Reincarnation. Beast of Reincarnation blends high-impact combat with mythic storytelling. Battles against massive creatures are cinematic, aggressive, and skill-driven, demanding focus and adaptation. The world feels ancient and cyclical, shaped by destruction and rebirth. The game's unique hook is its reincarnation mechanic. Death isn't failure, it's progression. Each rebirth subtly alters the world, enemies, and abilities, encouraging experimentation and replayability. Instead of a linear journey, the experience feels like an evolving loop where knowledge carries over. That fusion of narrative and mechanics gives Beast of Reincarnation its identity. Ananta. Ananta is a stylish urban action RPG built around movement and flow. Set in a modern city infused with supernatural elements, traversal is fast, fluid, and expressive. Parkour, momentum-based movement, and vertical exploration turn the environment into a playground. What sets Ananta apart is how seamlessly combat and movement blend. Style is rewarded, creativity is encouraged, and the city reacts dynamically to your actions. The world feels alive and responsive, making exploration just as engaging as combat. Ananta is all about freedom, rhythm, and expression, giving it a strong identity among modern action games. Last Sentinel paints a bleak, neon-lit vision of the future where surveillance and control define everyday life. Set in a dense cyberpunk city, the game emphasizes stealth, hacking, and tactical decision-making over brute force. Movement through the city feels deliberate, with vertical exploration and environmental manipulation playing major roles. What sets Last Sentinel apart is its moral ambiguity. Choices rarely feel clean, and consequences unfold gradually rather than immediately. The city reacts subtly to your actions, from NPC behavior to faction relationships. Atmosphere does much of the storytelling, using lighting, sound, and isolation to reinforce its themes. It's less about saving the world and more about surviving within it, which gives the experience a grounded, uneasy edge. Ikuma, the Frozen Compass. The Frozen Compass is a survival adventure defined by endurance and companionship. Set in a frozen wilderness, the game emphasizes preparation, navigation, and environmental awareness. Every decision feels deliberate, from managing supplies to choosing a safe path forward. The standout feature is the partnership between the explorer and his dog. The dog plays an active role in survival, helping track scents, detect danger, and solve puzzles. The compass system ties navigation directly into the story, making exploration meaningful. Ikuma is slow, focused, and atmospheric, turning survival into an earned achievement rather than scripted challenge. Pragmata continues to intrigue because of how little it explains and how confident it feels doing so. Set in a lonely sci-fi future, the game follows an astronaut and an android child navigating an abandoned lunar world. Exploration and puzzle-solving drive the experience, with combat taking a backseat to atmosphere and story. What makes Pragmata special is the relationship between its two leads. The child isn't just a companion, she's essential to progression, hacking systems, solving puzzles, and surviving. Gameplay constantly reinforces cooperation, making the duo feel inseparable. The blend of grounded sci-fi and surreal imagery creates a haunting tone, making Pragmata feel emotional, mysterious, and deeply human. Marvel's Wolverine. Marvel's Wolverine radiates confidence from the moment you see it in motion. This isn't a flashy superhero spectacle. It's a brutal, character-driven experience that leans hard into who Logan really is. Combat is close, violent, and raw, making every encounter feel personal. Instead of flying through enemies, you're up close, trading blows, feeling impacts, and pushing through damage. The pacing is deliberate, allowing quieter moments to breathe between explosive fights, which adds weight to the story and the world. The real standout is how vulnerability is woven into the experience. Wolverine's healing factor doesn't make him untouchable, it makes fights feel desperate. You take damage, you feel it, and you survive through endurance rather than invincibility. Environments feel grounded and intimate, encouraging exploration and reflection rather than non-stop action. It feels less like a superhero power fantasy and more like a deep dive into Logan's anger, isolation, and humanity. That mature tone sets Wolverine apart from almost every other Marvel game out there, and it's exactly why the hype keeps growing. Forza Horizon 6 takes the series to Japan, delivering an open world built around dense cities, mountain roads, countryside highways, and coastal routes. The Horizon formula returns with total freedom, dynamic weather, and a huge focus on exploration over a strict race structure. Official details emphasize scale and variety, with the map designed to feel massive not just in size, but in how differently each region drives. It's a celebration of car culture, speed, and discovery, blending accessibility with depth and offering one of the most expansive Horizon worlds yet. OD is an unsettling psychological horror game shrouded in mystery, built around atmosphere, fear, and discomfort rather than action. While details remain limited, its tone alone has made it stand out immediately. The project is led by Hideo Kojima and Jordan Peele, a collaboration that signals experimental storytelling and deeply disturbing horror. OD is positioned as something intentionally different, a horror experience designed to stay with you long after you've stopped playing. High on Life 2. High on Life 2 brings back the chaotic sci-fi shooter formula, doubling down on fast-paced gunplay, bizarre alien worlds, and non-stop humor. The sequel continues the idea of throwing you into an absurd universe filled with talking weapons, strange characters, and environments that constantly react to your presence. Combat remains kinetic and over-the-top, encouraging aggressive movement and creative weapon use rather than slow, tactical play. What makes High on Life 2 stand out is its commitment to personality. The game leans heavily into comedy-driven storytelling, with weapons and NPCs commenting on everything you do, turning exploration and combat into part of the joke. Officially, it's positioned as a bigger, more polished follow-up that expands the universe while keeping the same chaotic energy that defined the original. Looking at everything lined up for 2026, it honestly feels like a year that could be remembered the same way people talk about legendary release periods from the past. There's an insane amount of variety here, massive open-world blockbusters, deeply personal story-driven games, experimental horror projects, stylish action titles, and smaller concepts that could end up becoming cult classics. What's exciting isn't just how big these games are, but how confident they feel in their identities. So many of them are clearly trying to do something specific instead of appealing to everyone at once. Whether it's pushing realism to uncomfortable levels, rethinking familiar franchises, or experimenting with how players interact with worlds and characters, 2026 feels packed with games that want to leave a mark. And realistically, not every game here will land perfectly, but even a few of them delivering on their promises could make this an unforgettable year for gaming. If you had to pick just one game from this entire list that you're most excited for, that choice alone says a lot about what kind of experiences you value in games. Either way, it's a great time to be paying attention, because the next wave of gaming isn't just coming, it's almost here.